Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jackie Rowe, and I'm one of the marketing managers here at Cisco Meraki. And today I'm going to take you through an introduction to Cisco Meraki's MX Security Appliance. This is our unified threat management device. It does a job of about 6 different devices all in one, so it's quite a crafty little device. Now, while we wait for the last few people to join the webinar today, I want to take a quick moment to look at the agenda. We're first going to start off with an introduction to Cisco Meraki for those of you who might not be too familiar with the company or the product portfolio that we have. Then we're going to take a look at why we're seeing so many IT professionals moving towards cloud networking and why this might be an ideal solution for you. We're going to spend the majority of today's time in a live product demo showing you the features and the functionalities of the Cisco Meraki solution, and then wrap everything up by taking a look at the different product families we have on offer. Now, I am joined on the line today by my colleagues who are here and ready to answer any questions that you might have. So if you do have a question, go ahead and type it into the Q&A or the chat box of WebEx, and I'll be periodically taking a look at them throughout today's session and answering them for the group. I'm also pleased to announce that for all the qualified IT professionals in attendance today, we will be giving out a free 802.11ac Wave 2 access point, along with a 3-year cloud management license. This device is yours to keep, and yes, I know it is not a security appliance. It is an access point, but it does give you the ability to log into Dashboard and to play around in there and see just how simple it can be to manage your Meraki solution, because it's all going to be managed out of the exact same interface. Now, in order to receive that access point, you do need to qualify. You can find your qualification details at meraki.cisco.com/free-AP. To get your device, you do need to call in to confirm your shipping information. We need to verify your shipping address before we can send the device out to you. We want to make sure that the device gets to you in your hands. You can find your representative's contact details in the reminder email for today's webinar, or you can reach out at meraki.cisco.com/contact. Either way will work just fine, but we do need to verify that shipping information before we can send your access point to you. So let's go ahead and dive in. A little bit about Meraki, who we are, and what we do. We are a 100% cloud-managed IT solution. So what does that really mean? Well, if you take a look at the left-hand side of the screen here, we have this graphic, and we have our 6 main product portfolios on there. We have our access points, we have our security appliances I'm going to be talking about in more detail today, we have our access and aggregation switches, communications, enterprise mobility management platform, and our latest addition, which are these security cameras. All 6 of these product lines are in constant communication with the cloud, which is doing the heavy lifting of monitoring and managing all of that complex information, and then giving it to you in a very easy to understand way in Dashboard. So what's Dashboard? Well, Dashboard is your browser-based management tool. Whether you're on a laptop, a desktop, or whether you've downloaded the Meraki app on a mobile device, you can log in and have access and visibility and configuration control to your entire network, no matter where it's located or no matter where you're located. So, for example, today, despite the accent, I'm sitting here in London, and we're going to be actually demoing our San Francisco offices. So if we think about that, let's say there's an issue in our San Francisco offices, and I needed to get there right now to figure out what the problem is. It's about 2-hour commute, hour and a half, 2-hour commute to Heathrow from here, plus about an 11-hour flight, and then another hour to get from that airport in San Francisco to our headquarters. So that's about 14 hours at a minimum to get from where I'm sitting right now to our San Francisco offices just to start to begin to understand what's going on. Rather, I can sit here in London and actually log into our dashboard and have visibility into exactly what's happening and actually start troubleshooting in Dashboard. I can change configurations, and then if we do need something to happen on site there, I can quickly call somebody, give them the entire update of what's going on, and simply ask them to take care of a quick task. So it's a very useful tool. Now, Meraki is the leader in cloud-managed IT. In fact, we are among Cisco's fastest-growing portfolios. And this slide is actually already out of date. We have over 200,000 unique customers and over 2 million devices online at any given time. So what are the benefits of having a cloud-managed solution? How does this architecture work? Well, it's a completely out-of-band control plane, so no end-user traffic actually passes to the cloud. Only monitoring and management data passes to the cloud. You can see that in the graphic on the right-hand side. We also have ongoing security audits and daily penetration tests to ensure ongoing security. We have reliability in our data centers around the globe. In fact, we have 3 data centers right here in Europe in Frankfurt, Munich, and Dublin. Now, what that means for you as a European customer is that when you first create your Meraki organization, you simply select that you're part of the EMEA region. That ensures that your data stays right here in Europe. It doesn't go traipsing around the world. It stays right here, and it is compliant with EU privacy laws. It's also a very scalable solution and a future-proof solution. Now, if you want to find more information out about our security, our scalability, reliability, data centers, etc., we have an entire section of our website dedicated to this at meraki.cisco.com/trust. Now, I want to take a moment to talk a little bit more about the last point here, and that's future-proofing. Now, before you go running and screaming in the other direction, hear me out on this. With the Meraki solution, there are 2 main line items when you purchase it. There's the device itself, so the piece of hardware, your security appliance, and the license. With the security appliances, you have the option between an enterprise license or an advanced security license. So 2 options there. We'll talk about what you get in each one of those licenses a little bit later on in today's session. But I want to highlight the licensing part here. It's not a bad thing, I promise. I like to group it into 4 main categories, 4 main benefits that you get with this license. The first benefit is this access to dashboard no matter where you are in the world, the ability to have granular visibility and deep control and configuration control anywhere over any aspect of your network. The second thing that I want to talk about is the warranty. We have a lifetime warranty on the security appliances. The third thing is that you get 24/7 dedicated Meraki support. So no matter what time of day or night it is, if you have a question, if you have a problem, maybe you just want to have a chat, you can call up our support line and you're going to be put in touch with somebody in our San Francisco, London, or Sydney offices that's going to help you from very beginning all the way to resolution. The fourth thing that you get with that license is access to all future firmware updates and all future feature releases. So what that means is that let's say you purchase a Meraki device today, and then let's say hypothetically next week we release a groundbreaking new feature. You're not going to miss out. Instead, you'll receive a notification in your email, in your dashboard, etc., letting you know that there's an update available, and it'll ask you when it's convenient to download and install that new update. And what that means for you is that when that update actually happens is you're getting the latest in terms of features, you're getting the latest in terms of firmware updates, and essentially it's kind of like getting a brand new device for free. So let me give you another analogy here, another way to think about this. Most people nowadays have smartphones. I have an Android phone, and about a week ago, my phone notified me that I had an update available, and it asked me if I wanted to update it. I happened to be out and about, and it said, do you want to wait until you're on a wireless network? And I said, sure. When I got to that point, I said, all right, let's download this update. When it finished downloading, I looked at my phone, and physically, it had not changed. My phone was still a phone. It had not magically transformed into a sports car or anything like that. Shocking. But when I turned the screen on, I realized that there were features that I had previously, which had now been made better. They had been optimized. And then there were other features that I'd never seen before, brand new features that I now benefited from. And the beauty of this is my phone is a little over a year old now, but it now runs a little bit faster than it did. It now has brand new features. And the features that it previously had have now been made better. And that's great because it's almost like getting a brand new phone. And so translate that concept to the Meraki devices, and it holds true that way as well. So when you hear licensing, don't run in the other direction. It actually is a really great way for us to make sure that you have the latest and greatest in terms of technology. And the other really great thing about this type of solution, this cloud-based solution, when we get into the dashboard, you're going to see that at the bottom of every screen and dashboard, there's this little button that says, I wish this page would. You can click on that button, and that is a way for you to enter your feedback. And that goes directly to our engineering team, who uses that feedback to actually make feature requests and fulfill feature requests and make the product better as we go forward. So we are very much influenced by what you as our customers are asking for. Let's talk now a little bit more about these security appliances. Like I said earlier, it's a complete threat management solution, so a UTM device, and it has 3 main elements that we're going to focus on today: security, networking, and application control. In terms of security, we have the firewall that's built in. That's kind of the thing that most people think about when they think of a firewall, a security appliance, is that firewall aspect. We also have a VPN. It's one of the most elegant site-to-site VPNs that I've seen in the industry, as well as client VPN. We have intrusion detection and prevention that's built into the system, as well as advanced malware protection powered by ThreatGrid. We can do geo-based IP firewall rules. On the networking side, you have high availability, you have WAN balancing and failover, intelligent path control. Now this is the first. Meraki is the first company out there that has a security appliance with SD-WAN built in at no additional cost. We're going to talk about that when we get into the demo in just a few minutes, but that is crucial in having this stand apart from those other devices out there. So it's essentially making your device work harder for you. We also have 3G, 4G failover, and then in terms of application control, we have things like bandwidth shaping, URL content filtering, quality of service control, and the list goes on and on and on. So we're going to demo as many of these as we can today. But why are we seeing so many customers and so many IT professionals moving towards cloud networking, and specifically this security appliance? Well, part of my job here at Meraki is actually speaking with our customers, and I get to hear both sides of it. I get to hear the challenges that they were facing before they switched over to a Meraki solution, and then I get to hear the benefits that they've received since that change. Now, on this screen here, I've picked the top 3 challenges that I hear most often. The first one here is that we have customers that need a powerful solution, but it's very complex. And so with the Meraki solution, they're getting that powerful security system and a lot more because it is a UTM device, and it's incredibly intuitive to implement. So we have a robust suite of integrated Cisco security technologies. We have a very intuitive GUI-based configuration. You also get the seamless updates from the cloud. And then you have things like the scalability aspect that I'm going to talk about next. You have things like configuration templates. So we have a customer here in Europe. They're a retail customer. They have about 12,000 sites that they have deployed with the Meraki solution. Now, instead of configuring 12,000 networks individually, what they realized when they were doing some planning is that most of their stores fell into a small, a medium, and a large size configuration. And they realized, for example, that the small size store needed 2 or 3 types of configurations. I'm making that number up. The medium store needed 4 or 5, and the big store needed 6 or 7, for example. And so what they did is they created 3 networks, and they made those networks as a template. And so what they were able to do when they brought these other network devices online is they said, great, these network devices are now added to my inventory in dashboard. Let me assign them to their respective templates. And they did this while the devices were being shipped out to those stores. So instead of taking days or weeks or months to actually configure these different devices and the different networks and get them rolled out, they were able to do it in a matter of seconds to deploy all of those different sites as soon as they had those configuration templates up. So it's a very intuitive solution and very, very easy to scale. And that was the next thing that I hear about quite a bit is that we have 1 site or we have 2 sites, but we're a global company. How do we make sure that we actually scale to all of those different locations? And it's not just installing devices, but it's also keeping them up to date. It's also making sure that we're not having any gaps in our security. And so that's another really crucial benefit of the templates, because if there is, for example, a security update or security patch that needs to be implemented or configuration change, what they can do is they can go into those templates, make the change 3 times for those 3 templates that I was just talking about, click on save, and it will automatically update all 12,000 of those stores. And that is the beauty of it. You're not leaving yourself open for different deviations and configurations in each of those different sites that could lead to security issues down the line. Instead, you're keeping everything top-notch security, top-notch configuration, and you have deep visibility into all of that in one centralized place. I also have the ability, as I mentioned, to do that site-to-site VPN. It's zero-touch provisioning, and then on top of that, it's self-healing. So if an IP address should change for whatever reason, it's going to negotiate that and self-heal that VPN connection. So you're not going to lose that connection from site to site. And then the last thing here that I hear about quite a bit is, yeah, we have a network, but we don't really know what's going on it. We have a customer here in the UK, SAS International. They're a really cool manufacturing company, actually. They manufacture steel ceilings for a lot of different venues and things like that. Beautiful ceilings. And they were telling me an anecdote where on their production floor, they actually retrofitted a lot of their machines with wireless connectivity. And in the past, designers had to go down to the shop machines and then plug in the designs, hit go, watch it happen, walk away, things like that. So they retrofitted the wireless on there, and what they were able to do, then the designers could just send remotely these designs down to their machines. Well, the IT team saw this massive spike in bandwidth usage one day. And in the past, they would have seen a massive spike, or they would have seen more or less like a network slowdown. So they wouldn't have been able to know what it was. They would have just said, wow, like network's going a little bit slower today. That's strange. And what they were able to do with the Meraki system was say, we see a massive bandwidth spike. We can narrow it down to this machine. We can narrow it down to this particular problem. And what had happened is that one of their design requests had been caught in a loop. And so instead of it running once, it was just running continuously. And so they were able to nix that within a matter of minutes and have everything in their shop floor carry on business as usual. And it's that type of visibility that's crucial in understanding what's going on with your network, because your IT infrastructure should do more than just be IT. You can actually start influencing business decisions based on what your IT infrastructure is telling you. So for example, if you look at analytics, you can see how users are interacting with the network. You can see where people are going. You can see how people are sending things on your network. You can narrow things down a little bit more and say these are the types of threats that are coming in. Maybe we have devices that aren't as protected as we thought they were. Maybe we need to put something in there to protect those devices and therefore protect the network and reduce the number of inbound threats that we're seeing on the security appliance, things like that. So all of these things are inherently built into the security appliance. And that really is one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing so many IT professionals moving towards cloud networking. All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about security before we go into the demo today. So the first thing I want to talk about is the ironclad security that you get with this UTM device. So as I mentioned, you have the next generation firewall. You have the intrusion detection and prevention that's based on Cisco Snort technologies. You have content filtering that's based on Webroot's Bright Cloud. We get always up-to-date content categories. You can do geo-based IP firewall rules, malware protection powered by Cisco's advanced malware protection and threat grid, as well as automatic updates, which I mentioned already, and ongoing PCI compliance. This system is backed by Cisco's Talos Threat Intelligence. So what exactly is that? Well, Talos has over 250 full-time threat researchers that look up millions of telemetry agents. They're spanned over 4 global data centers. They have over 100 threat intelligence partners, and they've detected over 1,100 threat traps. So they're scanning for things like the malware samples. They're looking at web requests. They're looking at honeypots. They're looking at internet-wide scanning and email messages. All of these different things to understand what is a threat to your network and how can we prevent it. So how does this advanced malware protection work for the MX? Well, we talked about the enhanced threat defense, so that automatic protection on that ever-growing list of malicious files, malware, etc. That's going to be handled by Threat Grid. Then you have visibility in the security center, so it's a quick way to see how many threats are coming in, where is it concentrated, are there particularly affected devices, and allows you to take control. And that goes hand in hand with the rapid detection. So it's automatic alerting when something is found to be malicious on your network, and then being able to easily go in and deal with that potential issue. That really is what it comes down to at the end of the day. Yes, you can identify it. Yes, you can get alerts for it, but if it's not a simple matter of alleviating whatever this problem is, then why alert in the first place if you can't fix it? So going in with Meraki with this massive ease of management, in just a couple of mouse clicks, you can protect your network. Now with the Meraki MX, we're actually seeing over 220 million known malicious files, over 407 million clean files. We're seeing millions of new incoming malware samples every single day. And we have millions of devices using AMP globally, and over 3 billion lookup requests every single day. So this is no small operation here. It is quite a large operation for the security appliances that we have on this larger network. And all of these things are happening to make sure that you are protected without you having to wake up in the middle of the night going, oh my gosh, there has been a problem. So for example, if we think of things like WannaCry, we actually had a patch in our system about a month before it kind of had global resonance. And that was built in to the advanced malware protection and through the intrusion detection system that we have on the system. So all Meraki devices that were running that intrusion detection were automatically protected. So again, you didn't have to wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night hoping that your network wasn't affected. And this is how it all works. So we have the searches coming in from the internet, everything from good files to bad files, etc. And then the way this works is it is a constant cycle between ThreatGrid, AMP, and back through the Meraki MX. So as things come in, as they are detected as malicious, as they are detected as being not a good thing for your network, they are filtered out. So only clean information is actually getting into your network rather than all of those potential threats. In terms of connectivity and WAN, we have dual uplink ports. We have that site-to-site VPN that I was mentioning. We're going to demo that in just a couple of minutes. We have intelligent path control. So this is SD-WAN. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the only solution on the market that is SD-WAN built in at no additional cost. And what that's going to allow you to do is set up parameters on your network that say, this information is important to me, and these are the appropriate levels or the appropriate parameters that I'm okay with, loss, latency, jitter, etc. And based on an uplink and how much loss, latency, and jitters on that uplink, I either want the network to decide, yes, I'm sending information over uplink 1, for example, or no, I'm going to fail over to WAN 2, which has a better traffic. So it's essentially a set it and forget it thing for you. You don't have to continuously monitor what type of path your information, your traffic is taking. You simply set it up on parameters that are acceptable to you, and then the security appliance handles it for you so that you can be rest assured that the best path is being chosen every single time. And depending on what type of business you have, what type of location you have, what type of connection you have, there are a lot of different solutions with the Meraki security appliance that can fit each of those individual situations, whether you're on a combination of broadband and MPLS, whether you're on a combination of broadband and 4G, or whether you have dual broadband connections. It will work on any one of these in a way that is going to, at the end of the day, save you money, give you more visibility, and give you more a reliable traffic connection. So what about this automatic site-to-site VPN that I keep talking about? Well, what this does is it creates VPN tunnels between your locations, as you're aware. VPN does that. And then what you're able to do then, again, is set it and forget it. Because it is a self-healing system, it's resilient, it automatically adjusts to changes to maintain that secure connectivity, either during an ISP or data center outage, during a hardware failure, or even during an IP address update. Whatever the case might be, and it's configurable in about 3 mouse clicks. You simply choose whether you want a hub and spoke or mesh mode. If it's a hub and spoke, you choose which one's your hub, and then the 3rd mouse click is choosing which of your subnets you want broadcasting across that connection. And it most definitely does work. The Meraki devices do work with non-Meraki VPN peers. You're not going to get this all the features that you would if it was a Meraki to Meraki peer, but you most definitely can integrate it with existing hardware. So here's a little bit more about that application-aware intelligent path control. So you have the dual-active VPN connection, and it's load balancing your traffic over that hybrid WAN. And it's going to do things like policy-based routing, as well as dynamic path selection. So whether it's preferred path or whether it's the best path. And like the slide says, it is the only solution out there to combine SD-WAN with industry-leading security technology and a cloud-based technology. A little bit more about visibility. So we're going to show these, show a few slides when we get into, or a few pages when we get into the demo here. But it's the ability to have visibility into exactly how much bandwidth is being used, which users are consuming that bandwidth, what are the applications that are consuming that bandwidth. So it's not just about, oh, we're getting a lot of bandwidth on device A. We can say we have a really high uptick in iTunes. Who is using iTunes? Is it a lot of people, or is it one user in particular that's abusing their privileges? You also have the ability to do URL logging. So you can do smart search, you can do Active Directory integration for user identification if you want to track that back to a particular person. And you most definitely can export this information for aggregation as needed. And then for the VPN Health, the bandwidth, and the performance monitoring, this is not necessarily just about your VPN, your site-to-site VPN peers. This is also about monitoring that intelligent path selection that's been happening here. So you can click in and say, interesting, this type of application, this type of traffic went on WAN 2 instead of WAN 1. And then you can click in and actually find why that decision was made, and then monitor your different uplinks on a per uplink basis. You can also receive email alerts from the clouds. This is something that we have built in. You're not going to be left in the dark if something happens to your network. Instead, you can be notified based on a variety of different things that you choose. So whether it's things like notifying you if there is an IP conflict detected, or whether your warm spare failover occurs, or anything like that. And a quick note about warm spares is that with a warm spare, you have two devices, right? So you have two MX devices that are going to be sitting side by side, and you're only actually using one of them at a time. So this is a good cost saving for you because you have that redundancy built in, but you only have to pay for one license because you're only using one device. So that is a good cost saving that's built in with that added protection of having a warm spare. All right, let's go ahead and move over to our demo now. I'm going to share a Chrome window with you. Now, before we started today's webinar, I logged into dashboard.meraki.com. I entered in my username and credentials. I went through two-factor authentication. I'm using Google Authenticator for that. And I'm taken to this overview screen. Now, on this overview screen, I have instant visibility into how my network is deployed, where it's deployed, and the overall network health. So this is a great stop when you first log in to say, how are things going? Now, we have our Sydney office down here in Australia. We have our London office where I'm speaking to you from today. And then we have our San Francisco office over here in California. Now, I can go ahead and click into the San Francisco office and say, that's quite strange that it was showing up as red. And if I hover over any of these icons now, we have a lot of different networks that are deployed in this office. And so we can see a lab network, we can see our corporate network, etc. Now, for us, it's actually quite normal for us to see our networks going online, offline, healthy, unhealthy, all the time. And that's because our research and development team sits in that office and they're constantly dog fooding new products. They're constantly dog fooding new firmware updates, trialing out new products, everything. So firmware, features, new products, we get hit with everything. And so we are really used to actually seeing this because we essentially want to trial everything on ourselves before we make sure that we're sending it out to you in a clear and clean way. Now, I could click into any of these networks, but I can also expand out this list here of all the different networks that we have. So, for example, we have our San Francisco network. We have our security network that's been actually broken out into its own separate network, and that's simply because our IT team is playing around with some information there. But on this list, we can see the network health of each of those particular networks. We can see the overall usage over the last week, the number of clients, the amount of bandwidth being utilized, as well as on a per network breakdown here. If I scroll over a little bit further, I want to draw your attention to two columns. The first one is this template column. Now, I talked about templates earlier when we were in the slide deck. Templates are the way for you to create a template and then bind other networks to that template. So we're predominantly using templates for our home network users, our teleworkers. And so what we've done is created for example, a US template, an APAC template, an IT template. So our IT team has their own template. And what we're able to do that is as new users come into our network that are working from their homes, we can simply bind them to these templates. And they'll download all the configurations they need to be proficient as they work from home. So this was the example I gave you with the 12,000 shops that we have a retail customer here in the UK for, in Europe for. The last column here is the firmware status column. This is going to show you which of your networks are up to date, which of your networks have an update available, and which of your networks have an update scheduled. And so you can click into any of these and actually find out more details about when an update is scheduled. What you can do is you could say, I have an update window. So all of my updates, for example, happen between Saturday and Sunday at midnight. Or you can say, actually, I want to schedule these particular updates to happen at specific times. Or maybe I want to defer that update for now because I don't actually want to make a change quite yet. So you have a lot of options built in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and click into our San Francisco security network. So let's see here if I can find it quite quickly. Might have to do a search. At the top of the page here, we have a very handy search bar at the bottom of the page. But you can very quickly type in anything that you're looking for, whether it's a tag or whether it's a device name or a network name, and it will grab that and condense it down very quickly for you. We'll see it in just a minute when we go into the clients page. But first, let's start off with the summary report. So this is an organization-wide summary report for the security appliance over the last week. Now you can change that time frame to a custom range, and you can also email this report or even schedule this type of report to be emailed to you at a regular cadence, whatever works best for you and your IT team. But on here we can see the total overall usage and bandwidth. We can see the top security appliances by usage. We also can see the top clients on a per day basis, the top clients by usage, the top applications, and then if we scroll down a little bit further, we start seeing things like top block sites that are trying to be accessed, as well as security threats that we have identified. So you have a lot of detailed information on this page, but it also is presented to you in a very easy to understand way, so you can just have a glance at this as you go about your day-to-day activities and say everything looks fine. Now, talking a little bit more about security threat, I want to dive into that first. So if we come over here under Security Appliance, we see something called the Security Center under Monitoring. So if I click into that, we're taken to the Security Center. Now here we're able to see on a per day basis the number of threats that are coming in. And I can zoom in on a per day basis and even on a per hour basis and find out even more details about when exactly something has happened. And if I zoom down a little bit further, we see the affected clients, we see the threats, we can see the operating systems that are being affected. And so this is a really great way for you to keep tabs on exactly what's going on with your network, if there's any action that you need to take, or if you're simply monitoring a situation. You can also take a look at this events list here and just follow exactly what's been going on there. Now let's go ahead and I'm going to jump back a step here and I'm going to migrate over to our clients list. So before we start diving into the features and the functionalities of the security appliance, I want to take a look at the visibility that you get monitoring who is using your network and for what. So on this client page at the top here, we see a bandwidth usage chart. This is over the last 2 hours, but I can change this to be the last week, for example. So we see spikes during the 5 hours. And then in this application list over here, we can expand this out and see the top applications by usage. Now, here at Meraki, we tend to be a corporate organization that uses applications like WebEx, occasionally YouTube, Salesforce, things like that. We don't really use things like iTunes or Spotify or Facebook. And so what this allows me to do is very quickly just scan down this list and see what are the top applications. If I'm seeing an application like iTunes hitting really high up into this list, I can click into this application. It's going to give me a brief description of what the app is if I'm unfamiliar with it. And then I can dig in and say, is it a lot of users that are actually driving up the overall usage? Or in this case, for example, is it one user that's using a majority of the rule? And what I can do is I can click in to that particular device. I'm just going to open them up in a separate window. And I can say, all right, this client is currently connected. I can see the device type. I can come over here and see the details now for this particular client and see, sure enough, 99% of this overall user's usage was on iTunes, and that's quite a bit. But it was all concentrated around, what was that, Thursday of last week. And so that's interesting to me. So maybe what I want to do is ping this user and say, what's going on here? Or if we're seeing a device that's continuously using all of that amount of bandwidth, what we might want to do is temporarily suspend that user's access to the network because it might be network abuse. And so what we can do is come down here to the policy and actually block them from the network altogether. Now we can block them with no message, or what we can do is we can say something like, high amount of iTunes detected. Please see IT. Something along those lines. And that way, if they're locked out of the network, they're not blind to it. They can see the splash page that says, this is why, or I need to talk to IT, or whatever the case might be. And then you can figure out what the issue is. Maybe it's somebody that's just downloading all of their favorite podcasts. I have no idea. But it also might be a good red flag that maybe there's something on that user's device. Maybe there is some type of threat that has embedded itself on that device. And so we can block them from the network and stop that access. Once we talk to them, we can move them back so a normal policy, or we can even add them to a group policy. Now, a group policy is a subset of your overarching network policy. So what this means is that you might say, the network as a whole, we're going to give the network these policies, or we're going to assign these users these types of policies. And what a group policy does is it says, for users that are assigned to this group policy, we have one called bandwidth abuser. It's one that we've created. You can create whichever ones you want. But what that does is it blocks all video and music applications. And it allows them to do everything else that they normally would, but blocks those applications. And so it's essentially saying, we see that you're abusing the network. You still need to do your work, but we're not going to give you access to those applications that you're using too much of. And you can also put this on a schedule. So for example, if you say, I actually really only care during work hours, so 9 to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, that's when this group policy is going to be in effect. The other times, I don't care. So you can decide how you want to implement that. But that's a group policy. You actually implement group policies up here under network-wide group policies. We'll get to that in a little bit. Let's go ahead and jump back now to our client page because what I want to do is hide the details here. And we're going to go ahead and take a look at the appliance status now. I'm going to open up that in a new page because while that's loading, I want to show you this page. This is a full list of all the client devices. We have about 6,500 client devices, and that's a lot, especially if you have one person that says, my internet is slow. Well, that's a hard thing to do research on when you have one user. So what you can do is you can type in a user's name, like George, for example, and I can click into that user's device and start finding more detailed information about that user's device and see how they're connecting, what they're doing, etc. So you have a lot of visibility there. You also can search on things like a printer. If you have printers in your network, you can search on an operating system, so Mac OS X, for example, or maybe even Windows, whatever the case might be. So you can search on that and start pulling up and narrowing down your list of 6,500 client devices. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the security appliance itself now. So this is the hardware. That's what we're looking at. So here, this is the primary. You can see that a spare is set up. It's passive, but it is ready to go. So if I click on that, that's just going to open up the warm spare in a second window and see that's MX2. So that's just sitting here ready to go as a backup. But let's jump back to this primary now. On this primary, you have information on the WAN uplinks. You have information on the firmware update, the configuration. You also have live and historic data on how this device is currently being used, which ports are active, etc. You can also take a look at the different uplink configurations. You can take a look at the DHCP leases, the different subnets that you have available. You also have redundant power supplies, and you can click here and make sure that they're both operational, online, and ready to go. If one of these fails, you'll receive a notification, and that would show up as either orange or red, depending on what the case might be, and you can take action. You can see the location either on Google Maps, or you can upload your own floor plan or a blueprint. And then you have live tools. So these live tools are troubleshooting tools. It allows you to go in here and do things like look at the throughput on the device, or maybe you need to look at the traceroute or DNS lookup, etc. So you have a lot of options there to do remote troubleshooting all on this one particular page. Now, what are some of the other options? I did mention that this is a UTM device, so let's take this apart. Let's go through this very quickly. I am giving you as much of a deep dive as I can today. If you do have further questions or want to get more granular on a particular topic or feature, do reach out to your Meraki representative. They'd be more than happy to give you a more specific and tailored demo or answer any questions that you might have. Like I said, this is kind of a webinar for the group, a webinar for the masses, so we're not getting too granular on any one feature, but I'm trying to give you a nice overview of the entire security appliance as a UTM device. All right, so on the addressing and VLAN side, it's incredibly intuitive to set this up. So the first thing is setting it up in pass-through mode or in NAT mode. Down here, you can set up different routing. So if I click into one of these, the really interesting part is that if we're seeing traffic coming in under this particular subnet, what we can do is automatically route that to a particular group policy. So remember, I talked about group policies. And let's say that any devices under this subnet coming in, we know are accounting devices, for example. Well, what I can do is actually stick them in the accounting group policy. And now they have access to the specific applications that they need. Because remember, a group policy is not just about limiting the amount of access you have on the network. It's about tailoring how each user actually interacts with the network. For some users, that might be banning certain applications. For other users, it might be opening up the amount of bandwidth available to them. So that's a really interesting thing here. And then you can take that and actually partner that with Active Directory as well. So if we jump over here to the Active Directory group, you're going to come down here. You can type in your Active Directory server, and then you can come down here to the LDAP policies. So what we can do is add group policy mapping with your Active Directory. So for example, in our Active Directory, we do have an accounting group. So I can select accounting, and then once again, tie them to that accounting group policy. And so it allows you to pre-identify users, pre-configure a group setting for them, and just match that here. So you can set it and walk away from it. And it also enables you to make sure that each of those users has the same settings so that no one user is complaining that so-and-so has access to whatever. So let's now move on to the firewall section. As I mentioned at the start of today's webinar, a firewall is what most people first expect a security appliance to do. So here under the firewall rules, you have both inbound and outbound rules. It's incredibly easy to set these up. It's a series of drop-down buttons, fill in the blanks, etc. So really easy to set the outbound rules up. If we scroll down here, I want to draw your attention to the Layer 7 firewall rules. And under the Layer 7 firewall rules, what you can do is you can add a rule. You can type the URL or the host name into this box right here. You can also choose from pre-fingerprinted applications. So for example, if you know that you want to, block, there we go, software and antivirus updates because they are a massive bandwidth suck. Well, you can block them, or you can block only software, only antivirus updates. You can also block specific applications. So for example, if you don't need BitTorrent, I can block BitTorrent. Then you can also change that and not just block a specific application or group of applications, but start doing geo-based IP firewall rules and say that I want to deny traffic coming to or from the US and the UK, or conversely, deny traffic that's not coming from one of those two countries. Incredibly easy to set up in that drop-down menu and selecting menu. Further on this page, you have things like forwarding rules, one-to-one and one-to-many NAT, as well as Bonjour forwarding. Again, all very easy drop-down menus that you just simply select from. Moving on to the SitetoSite VPN. Like I said, 3 mouse clicks, very elegant, self-healing. It's quite remarkable in my opinion. So the first mouse click is choosing whether you want to go into mesh mode or hub and spoke mode. If you choose hub and spoke, the second mouse click is actually choosing which of these networks is going to be your hub. And then the last mouse click or set of mouse clicks is going to be choosing which of these subnets you want to broadcast across that VPN connection. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have Meraki to non-Meraki VPN peers, that definitely works. We're simply going to scroll to the bottom of the page here, and then we get this non-Meraki VPN peer section, where I can click on Add a Peer, type that information in. I can customize the Phase 1 and Phase 2 IPsec policies. And the other thing that you can do is instead of having this non-Meraki VPN peer simply blasting out to all devices that are in the network, you can actually use this availability option. You can tag your devices, your Meraki devices. So for example, I can click in here and say, I only want this non-Meraki VPN peer to reach out to those devices that are tagged as branch. So maybe we have a bunch of branch locations. And that's a really simple way to make sure that you're not just spamming your entire network. All right, now once you have this site-to-site VPN set up, you can come over here under the VPN status page. And this is where you can really start monitoring how your VPN connections are being handled and how much usage and latency they're causing. So you can monitor all of that on this one particular page. It's incredibly simple to have visibility into that. Now let's move over now. I've talked about Active Directory. I'm not going to get into client VPN today just because we're running a little bit out of time. But let's move on to traffic shaping, because this page I think is one of the most exciting pages. Yes, you have the ability to set your uplink configuration, so WAN 1, WAN 2. You can slide this little bar up and down on how much bandwidth you want available for each of those uplinks. You can also set that up for cellular backup. And then if we scroll down a little bit further, you can also set list update intervals, so you don't necessarily have to update all of them on the hour because maybe a cellular backup is actually quite costly. So you can change that update interval to happen, let's say, once a week. If we scroll to the bottom of the page here, we have things like global bandwidth limits and traffic shaping rules. So you could say that as a whole, we only want our clients to be using maybe 1 meg. So that makes it certain that each client is not abusing their bandwidth privileges. Then we can come down here under traffic shaping rules and start doing things like quality of service. And so what we can do is come down here, click on add, type a URL into this custom expressions box. Maybe it's something like Facebook, for example. Or what I can do, instead of typing it in there, is I can come down here once again to these pre-fingerprinted applications and choose things like social web and photo sharing, and choose applications like Facebook right from here. Or choose those video and music applications and choose applications like iTunes and Netflix and Spotify. And then what we're going to do now is actually throttle that bandwidth down. We're not making it impossible to use. We're simply making it so that a user cannot hog all of the bandwidth with iTunes. So essentially it's making those cat videos just buffer a little bit longer. Then on the converse of that, you can come in and add a new traffic shaping rule, and this is where the quality of service rules start coming in here. What you can do is come down and choose things like VoIP and video conferencing, because this is something that is quite important to people. We're relying more and more on rich media and video. And then instead of setting a limit here, you can choose to ignore limits. Maybe these are mission critical to your business. And then you can set a priority tag on this. So that's a really simple way to do that. And then I can actually drag this rule up above that limitation. And now we see that these top 2 rules are actually priority traffic shaping rules. They are quality of service rules that we're setting on the security appliance. All right, now let's get to my favorite part of this page. That's the middle section. Now in this middle section, we're talking about the uplink selection. This is SD-WAN. So here we're going to be choosing how we want different types of traffic to be handled on our network. So the first thing that I want to highlight is the ability for you to set a custom performance class. You can set a class name and then say that these are the OK parameters for me. These are within the acceptable latency, jitter, and loss scenarios. So we have an example already here for Citrix. Now what we're going to do is come up here to the VPN section and click on Add a Preference. So we're going to add a traffic filter. We can type in a custom expression as per usual here. Or once again, we have this list. So I can choose, let's say, VoIP and video conferencing applications and choose all of these. Then what I can do is say, you know what, my preferred uplink is whatever one is best for VoIP. And I can leave it at that. But that allows me to say, choose what's best network. Don't consult me. Don't always put it on WAN 1, which might be slow periodically. Just choose whatever's best for VoIP. Now, the other thing that you can do is say, you know what, no, I actually want everything to go across WAN 1. But what happens if the uplink goes down? Or what happens if there's poor performance? Well, if there's poor performance, then you can say the performance class that I want it to follow is the VoIP performance class. Or maybe it's that custom class that I specified already. And so you have the ability to actually go in there and actually customize how these different things are being utilized in your network. So that's SD-WAN. It's intelligent path selection and dynamic path control. All right, let's now move on. On this VPN status update page, by the way, at the very bottom here, you have uplink decisions. You can actually go in and track why different decisions have been made in your network. Moving on now, just a couple more things that I want to highlight. The first one is threat protection. So here, this is where we've integrated with Cisco's advanced malware protection and threat grid. Now, enabling this could not be easier. It's simply a matter of a drop-down menu, enabled or disabled. And the same holds true with threat grid. Enabled, disabled, intrusion detection and prevention, whether you want it to prioritize detection or prevention, and that's it. That's as simple as it is. You can add in other whitelisted URLs or traffic patterns, whatever your case might be, but it's incredibly intuitive to set that up. And the same holds true with content filtering. Here's where we partnered with WebRoot's BrightCloud. So we're getting always up-to-date content categories, And you simply click into this box here to see what those categories are. You can select different types of things. Maybe I can add gambling to this list. And now it's going to ensure that these types of categories are not going to be able to show up on my particular network. You can go down a little bit further and do things like search filtering, URL blocking, or whitelisting. Really, really simple to do. All right, the last thing now that I want to show you in terms of configuration are the templates. So coming up here to the templates, we're able to come in, and I'm going to click on this top template here for IT. And what we're able to see here is the fact that we have two users that are tied to this particular template. So let's go ahead and open up that template in a separate page. And if I click into this particular template, we see a nice little banner image at the top saying this is the configuration template for two networks so that you're never unsure of what you're doing. More or less, it is exactly the same type of configuration as it normally would be for setting up your network configurations. There is one exception here, and that is what happens if these different devices that are tied to a configuration template are behind different IP ranges. Well, that can cause some issues for your firewall rules. So instead of typing in, let's say, source or destination, what you can do instead is use the VLANs. So what you can do is say, all right, bear with me here, pretend that there's more than one VLAN. You can type in the corp VLAN, type in the host bits here, and then click add. And then you can come over here and let's pretend that this is a home VLAN, and you can type in the host bits over here, whatever the case might be, click on add. And that's it. Because you are now going through VLANs, you don't have to worry about what IP range the different devices are sitting behind. So it's very, very easy to do. And as you see, those are the devices that would be affected by that configuration template. Perfect. Okay, the last couple things that I just wanted to highlight for you today. If you come up here under alerts, I want to show you under network-wide, I want to show you the alerts page and then the administrators page. So the alerts, as I mentioned earlier, you can specify what type of alerts you want to be notified of. So for example, if a security appliance goes offline, if the primary uplink status changes, the lease pool is exhausted, etc., you can be notified in the event that any of these things happen. So you can be more proactive rather than reactive. The other thing is that you have the Meraki administrators page here. So you have role-based administration. And what that means is that, for example, we have this user that has read-write access over the entire organization. You have this user down here that has only viewing and exporting camera footage in our San Francisco office. And then further down here, you have other networks that are within our larger global organization, and these users only have the ability to read, to view each of these particular networks. They don't have read-write access. So you can do role-based administration. It's a very simple thing to do, and it allows you to really segment your network a bit better. All right, let's finish up today's webinar with a couple quick case studies. We do have an entire section of our website dedicated to case studies and customer stories at meraki.cisco.com/customers. But I want to quickly highlight a few of them. So Pete's Coffee and Tea, they're a worldwide coffee and tea retailer based out of California, and they have over 193 locations that they've connected with that site-to-site VPN connectivity tool. And what that allows them to do is have tabs on exactly what's going on at each of those different places. And it also allows them to have client monitoring, traffic analytics, live tools for visibility, etc. Kindred Healthcare, they have over 2,000 locations in the U.S., and they actually rely primarily on 3G, 4G uplinks in some of their hard-to-wire areas or areas where there's no broadband available. And then on top of that, they're using the firewall rules, the traffic shaping, content filtering, etc., to make sure that their patients, their guests, their staff, etc., are all using the network appropriately. Now, in terms of the product portfolio, I want to first start off with talking about the licensing. So with the security appliances, you have two options for the licensing. We have the enterprise licensing, which gives you a lot of the features that we talked about today. And then you have the advanced security license, which gives you a little bit extra. The reason we have broken this out into two types of licensing is we realized that many of our customers didn't necessarily need all the features under the advanced security license, and so we gave them an option to go without. So with the advanced security license, you get everything that the enterprise has, plus a bit more. So it's up to you on which one works best. In terms of the portfolio that we have on offer, we have two different teleworker devices. So we have the Z1 and the Z3. We have small branch devices, the MX64 and the MX65. And then we have two more for the small branch. It's the same MX64 and 65 models plus Wi-Fi. So you have with or without Wi-Fi on each of those two models, and that's 802.11 AC wireless. And then the MX65 also has PoE ports available on that device. So it has a bit of security, a bit of switching, and a bit of wireless all built in to a nice small form factor for maybe small branch locations. For the medium branch size, we have the MX84 and the MX100, depending on the throughput you need and the number of users you have. And then we have the large branch, campus, or concentrator size devices. So the range of 250, 400, 450, or MX600, again, depending on the number of users and the amount of throughput that you might need in your network. And then the last one, we have the virtual MX for both AWS as well as Azure. So what are your next steps? We offer free trials on every single Meraki product that we have. And those free trials will pay for shipping both ways in the EU and provide complimentary technical support to get you up and running even faster. Just let us know that you would like free trial support. It does not cost anything extra. It's simply a feature that we'd like to provide to you so that you can make the best of your free trial. Like I said, just let us know what you'd like to trial, and we'll get it out to you as soon as we can, free of shipping both ways. So meraki.cisco.com/eval, E-V-A-L. We also have a lot of great information on our website and our blog. This is where we talk about a lot of new features, new products, things like that. So do keep an eye on that on both of those sites. We also talk about different use case scenarios. And we have documentation.meraki.com. I'm throwing a lot of URLs at you right now. So let me quickly go over here and just show you. So the meraki.cisco.com/eval if you want to have a free trial. You can go to this website and just let us know what type of thing that you would like to trial, and we'll get that out to you. Documentation.meraki.com, this is our knowledge base. Our team keeps this up to date, so if you do have any questions, just pop it in here, type it in, or you can get started with one of the pre-selected categories. And then last, you reach out to your Meraki representative in order to request that free access point for attending today's webinar. Remember, it is an access point. It is not, unfortunately, a free security appliance. But request your free access point. You go to meraki.cisco.com/contact, and you can reach out that way. And then meraki.cisco.com/customers if you'd like to find out any of our reference stories from the customers that we already have. So those are the websites that I wanted to share with you today. I want to thank everybody for your time and attention and for the great questions that were asked, and I hope we hear from you soon.